Hey everyone, welcome to another episode of the Fantasy Football Fallout. It's where I watch every play of every game of every week, trying to find you the fantasy football insight nobody else can find. I go deeper than everybody. In this episode, we are talking about the Rams versus the Saints. Let me just get this out of the way. Another bad call. The Saints fans are irate and all that stuff. It sucks. Everybody hates to see it, but I'm not going to really focus on that. I just wanted to really get into the game stuff. And let's start with the Saints. Drew Brees looks like a torn ligament in his throwing hand, out 6 weeks. Ouch. Does this end the New Orleans Saints season? No, I don't think it does by any stretch. This was a tough game on the matchup. I thought that the Saints were going to come out and win this game, and who knows? If Brees plays the whole game, they might have. But the Rams looked a little bit better to me than they did in Week 1. I thought the Rams were rusty. The Saints came out. Bridgewater couldn't move the ball. Remember, the Rams, as much publicity as the offense gets for the Rams defense is pretty darn good too. So Bridgewater had trouble moving the ball. They really couldn't get anything going on the ground. Kamara, a few carries, a few yards. They just, really nobody could get anything going. And maybe they were deflated. Maybe it was the Rams defense. Maybe it was a mixture of the two. But it's going to be rough. Latavius Murray, I think he had 5 carries, 7 yards. That's not good enough. But I think moving forward, here's what we're going to see. Because to me, this is all about what's going to happen moving forward. I think with Bridgewater in there, remember, Bridgewater is an ex-Pro Bowl quarterback. He's one of the best backup quarterbacks in the league. So the Saints offense is in good hands. He can actually move the ball. I don't know why. He should be starting over several starters in the league, I think, right? So I think it's going to be okay. But, Michael Thomas is not going to be the Michael Thomas he was drafted to be. I'm sorry, it's just reality. Not for a few weeks yet. So if you like Michael Thomas, like I do, I love him. I don't have him on my team. I'm expecting his numbers to deteriorate over the next 4-ish weeks while Bridgewater is kind of distributing elsewhere. Maybe you can capitalize on that and get an impatient owner to move on a trade. So I think he's a trade candidate for somebody to take you on your stretch run. Traquan Smith, Keith Kirkwood, Ted Ginn, all these guys, and by the way, I think all 3 are on the injury report at this point. I don't think they're viable fantasy starters. Maybe Ginn in daily fantasy, but I really wouldn't start any of those guys. What I think the offense will do to help Bridgewater out, I think they'll use a little bit more Jared Cook. I think they'll use certainly a little bit more Alvin Kamara, and I also think that Latavius Murray is going to be more involved. I think it's going to look like the offense a couple years ago when Ingram and Kamara were running roughshod over everybody, and I think that's what they're going to try to do. So I actually like on waivers this week to pick up Latavius Murray. I know he had a poor game, but I don't think that'll be the trend going forward. I think they will have to use him. Moving it over into the Rams, I said last week, be patient on Gurley. This switching off the series thing, it's okay. Don't panic yet. And I think even though the Saints did a really good job of holding Gurley down in the run, you can see in the carries distribution there. I think he had 16 carries. Malcolm Breda had 6. Gurley had the touchdown this week. Gurley was involved in the passing game. Things will be okay. It's just take a breath. Don't overreact in Week 1. Remember, it's funny to me that a lot of fantasy owners will overreact in Week 1, but not overreact in like Week 10, right? It's because it's the first thing that they see and they're like, oh, this guy's garbage. And they don't take, matchups and game plans. They don't take that stuff into really or internalize it and really take this into consideration. And so Todd Gurley, like if he opened the season and had 100 yards and 3 touchdowns, and then his second game he had no touchdowns and Malcolm Breda had 2 touchdowns, would you be worried? No. So remember, this is a marathon. It's not a sprint. So Gurley will be just fine. We saw this week that he got in the end zone. He'll be involved in the game plan. He's still the top running back on that roster by a wide margin. And the coaching staff knows it. So just Sean McVay, he's going to be dialing up Todd Gurley, pass plays, run plays. Don't worry. Receiver, people in my rankings, I had Cooper Kupp quite high. He's actually my favorite receiver in this offense, and people are asking me why. And I say, well, have you watched him play with Jared Goff? Jared Goff loves this guy. He's a slot receiver. He's kind of working the middle of the field, and McVay's offensive system, that's very important. He was the most targeted. He had 120 yards. I think Brandon Cooks might have had a touchdown. It might have come back. I can't remember, but he returned to form. Robert Woods returned to form. But the bottom line is all 3 of those Rams receivers will be important. I think Higbee left the game a little bit early. Gerald Everett got in there at tight end, but I never really liked the tight end in this system. To me, when Cooper Kupp is in the game, game. He's my favorite. Gurley is the one to be patient with. And then Jared Goff is only going to continue to get better. New Orleans, again, you get a lot of publicity with Drew Brees and Kamara and Michael Thomas and all these guys. New Orleans has a pretty good defense too. These were two very good teams matched up this week. So don't be discouraged by, some of the lack of really high fantasy numbers. This is, I thought, a good game. And the Rams looked a lot less rusty this week than they did last week. So I think they're going to be kind of charged up and ready to go try to defend that NFC crown. So there you go. That takes us through another episode. I guess my one nugget here is, Jared Cook, I should say two nuggets. Jared Cook, I think, will improve over the next 6 weeks. And I think that Latavius Murray and Alvin Kamara are going to try to carry the Saints team. So Latavius Murray should definitely be rostered at this point, and I like him as a daily fantasy sleeper. So that's it. Takes us through another episode. Please help support this channel. Subscribe. There's a red button on your bottom right. There's a logo. There's an Underdog logo in the upper left. Please click either one of those and subscribe. We could also use as many views as possible. I have a playlist written or laid out for you in the upper it's the upper right-hand side of your screen. So please click that link as well. Watch a lot of these videos. You're going to find a lot of good fantasy football underground advice. What the analysts aren't doing because they're not watching, baby. I'm the one that's watching, and I do analytics. Who does both? This guy. So, seriously, guys, please check us out. We appreciate the support. Comment, and I will comment back. And check us out in another episode.